Act 4. We heal and forgive. Chapter 35. A Star is Born. Circles have no beginning or end, and if we start anywhere on a circle and follow it around, we end up in a loop coming back to where we started. An infant's circle of life is mystical because they are born innocent with a clean chalkboard, and with conscious intentions, parents can enter a child's circle and heal generational trauma. The circle of life are events that unfold, bringing babies from the cradle to the grave through ups and downs, love, and misfortunes. No matter how big or small the circle is, it ends in the same way for everyone, and similar events repeat, with the opportunity to master the previously baffling experiences. Dear Christian, it was early morning, and the light glare from the streetlight lurched out from its lantern, sneaking through our bedroom window draperies and settling on the floor at the foot of the bed.
Oh, it hurts so much. I'm going into labor.
Mom moaned. Can you iron a shirt for me because I have nothing to wear for this occasion? She sat in bed, rubbed her stomach, and stared at me, and I decided it best to scramble down to the car, remove the snow, and start the engine. Pumping the gas pedal 3 times, I said out loud, "Don't flood it." I turned the key, and the engine hesitated, not knowing what to do in the frozen chill. And then the car screamed, "Vroom!" As we drove to the hospital, the streets were bare, and a robust eastern wind belted the side of the car, shaking it sideways. Mom was breathing in and exhaling as she had learned in prenatal classes, and she was holding her tummy and in pain. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about genetics lately, and with a little luck, the baby will have your DNA intelligence. I know what you're thinking. Intelligence is very complex, but environmental factors influence intelligence. Let's consider nature plus nurture plus spirit."
The baby just moved. Can we just get to the hospital?
"Copy that," I said. 10 hours later, Mom was in the fight of her life and trying to push you into birth, and Nurse Debbie was assisting her with her breathing. Mom moaned with each labor spasm, creating an anxious concern, and at hour 10, the doctor announced, "We need to perform a C-section because the baby's head is too large to pass through the birth canal. I will make an incision in your stomach and lift the baby out." "Is it dangerous?" I asked. "It's a common procedure, and Mom is quite strong. Do we have your permission?" he asked. Mom nodded and said,
Yes,
"How do you feel, Mom?"
I'm okay.
Mom said to the doctor. "And how are you, Dad?" "I'm exhausted. I didn't know that having a baby was such hard work. Does a big head suggest a big brain, doctor?" The doctor saw the reaction of Nurse Debbie and Mom and smiled. "There are studies suggesting babies with bigger heads have bigger brains." "Screw me. I thought so," I said. Nurse Debbie closed a screen, and soon after, the doctor presented you, and you were alert. "You have a baby boy," he announced. You were wrapped in a white blanket to keep you warm, and Mom's joy escaped through happy tears, and she forgot her fight to bring you into the world. "Hello," I said, and your eyes darted toward my voice, walloping me like an incoming missile. "Did you see that he recognized me?" I asked, astonished.
He listened to you for 9 months, and your voice is familiar because you talk so much.
Nurse Debbie said. "Nurse Debbie, what are your thoughts on the big head, big brain theory?"
I think Mom is tired,
she said.
and so am I.
I closed my eyes and saw us on a mountaintop, and above sat the universe with pinkish blue planets surrounded by tiny white blinking stars, and from the middle of the universe poured a streaming light which emptied into my mind. I lifted you up and into the light, and promised on January 19th, 1994, to nurture the first gift of focus I saw in you and protect your mind and memory as a sentry, allowing only the good to enter your circle of life. When you were 2 years old, you stayed with a neighbor for a 2-day getaway, and when we returned home, you were stressed. It was the first time I had seen you communicate your temperament besides crying when you were hungry or tired. And as I untied your shoes, you pushed me away, so I placed you on my lap with your head on my chest. I entered a flashback memory of sitting on the floor, and my brother was sitting on my father's lap, and when I tried to climb up to my father, he pushed me away. Feeling my hurtful memory, I blended it with your distress, and as you became safe, I healed and released the old painful memory. I realized during the meditation that you struggled with adapting to new routines, and instilling reliable patterns for you would give me a second chance to relive a better childhood. It was remarkable because our daily routines were a winning combination and a reset on my circle of life. Thank you for needing what I needed. Another time, we watched a movie where the rain poured and flooding occurred. It began raining in the middle of the night, and you woke up afraid and came to me. We went back to your bedroom and climbed into your bed, and I watched your eyes become startled and look out of the window at the rain pounding on the glass as lightning shook the sky. As you clung to me, I remembered when I was also afraid and alone. We are safe, and I am protecting you, I whispered. You fell off to sleep, and the following day the sun was out and birds were chirping, and we just moved on to breakfast as if nothing had happened. It was a healing exchange because I protected you as you gave me comfort, and I healed because of our new memory together. The new memory was more potent than the old hurtful memory that dwelled deep inside me. As you grew, your talents developed into the boy that would not give up. You displayed persistence, patience, kindness, and humility, and I learned perseverance, patience, service, and humility through you. Thank you for being a great teacher. Mom saw your desire to build and gave you Legos, and you would look at the box, study it, and then put the pieces together. I marveled at your quest to analyze the individual components and connect them. Later, your love for basketball came, and you were short, so we lowered the new rim and basket so that you could shoot and make your shots. When you were 8 years old, you asked,
Dad, do you think I will play in the NBA someday?
"What do you say we try?" I said. From that day on, I became Coach Dad, and we played in the yard. Your analytical focus appeared, and you practiced relentlessly on your shooting. We were a great team because you were the boy who wouldn't give up, and I was Coach Dad, who would not give up on you. When you played games of the next 12 years, it gave me so much joy because I was your dad and helper, and you gave me the gift of companionship and charity. I didn't believe that you would ever play in the NBA, but I believed that you were learning you could do anything if you tried. However, I didn't know that you were becoming a future software engineer as you practiced. When you moved to California, I asked, "Have you seen the ocean yet?" "I saw it today, and the waves are rolling in." I closed my eyes and remembered the first time I sat at the ocean's curb and felt the awe of the horizon as white tipped waves rolled up on the beach and my feet. "I want to work in software engineering, Dad." "I believe in you," I said. I knew the boy who never quit would be a great software engineer because anyone so analytical at shooting a basketball would apply the same life skill to becoming a successful engineer. The training in the yard taught you passion and expanded your life skills. Please remember, exploration is exploration, whether sailing the seas or developing the internet. Once upon a time, Giovanni Colangelo, Carmela Manzara, and Mom were explorers like you. Never forget that your ancestors' courage is how you came to be, and that they dwell inside your soul. Please be considerate of others, and take pictures of your life, and take time to write the story of Christian Colangelo Heaney, because this way, our story will pass down to our future generations. Please remember that child skills are discovered during family activities, and it's the small, beautiful moments that will be remembered. Please remember that the chains of generational addiction have been broken, and life is a circle that repeats itself. and you will always have another chance to be a better version of yourself. Love, Dad. Chapter 36. A Starlet Arrives. Interracial Adoption. Children hear, see, feel, touch, and experience life as sponges, absorbing information as truth and creating beliefs about themselves and the world around them. Dear Angelica, on a cloudy March Chicago morn, a poor baby girl is born in the ghetto, and her mama cries, 'cause if there's one thing that she doesn't need, it is another hungry mouth to feed. In the ghetto. Elvis Presley. You gathered the books at the desk, and I smiled as you stacked them neatly so that you could carry them all at once. As you placed them on the table, I squished over in the chair and made room for you. And the book covers read, Rosa, the Story of Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King's simple, direct, poetic words. Once upon a time, birth mom, mommy, and daddy heard God ask us to adopt you. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? I asked.
Daddy, this is Sarah from the adoption agency, and I have a young lady in our office who wants to know if you will adopt her baby.
Really? I asked, very surprised. How could that be?
Well, as you remember, Mommy made the photo album showing your family.
What happened? I asked excitedly.
Birth Mom looked at many albums and asked if you would adopt her baby. Can you meet her tomorrow?
Yes, absolutely, I said. I remembered Mommy going through our pictures and pasting them into a red photo album. I thought of an image of Christian dressed in a tuxedo playing with an African American child, and Sarah asking if we would adopt a child of color. Ring, ring, ring,
Hello, Daddy. What are you doing?
Mommy asked. Sarah just called and said they want to meet us with Birth Mom, who picked your photo album. She wants us to adopt her baby,
That's wonderful.
Mommy said.
We will read books together, and our baby will be an informed and compassionate child who will be very cool.
The following day, Mommy and Daddy walked through the agency's doors, and the receptionist looked at us and said,
Please have a seat.
Sarah appeared and said Birth Mom had traveled far away and chose our photo album out of hundreds of photos. Is she here? I asked.
Yes, let's go meet her.
Sarah said. We followed Sarah, and God whispered to me, Lower your energy to calm level 1, Daddy. Inside the conference room sat a long gray table and 10 chairs, and a young African American woman sat at the top of the table. Birth Mom was medium brown skin, and she was thin like you. Her thick hair was short, black, and styled back on the side of her head just like yours, and her eyes were a marble-shaped dark brown just like yours. Birth Mom was wearing a gray sweatshirt and blue jeans, and her hands sat on top of the red photo album, which held the story of Christian, Mommy, and Daddy. We have Saint Birth Mom, Saint Sarah, and Saint Mommy, so we have 3 angels here, I said, and Birth Mom smiled. Sarah said that Birth Mom wanted to have her baby adopted and thought that Mommy and Daddy would be perfect parents. Birth Mom placed her hands back on our red photo album, and Sarah asked Mommy,
Could you please tell Birth Mom about yourself? I'm from Toronto, Canada, and my parents were born in Italy, and they moved to Canada after World War II. I work at a bank, and Daddy and I met in Mexico. Daddy and I walked on the beach, and he asked if I would marry him. He said we would have the most fabulous children the planet would ever see. And I fell in love with Daddy that day. Your turn, Daddy,
Sarah said, and nodded to me. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I opposed that. Later in life, I moved to a different neighborhood, and there was an adopted 12-year-old African-American boy who was being bullied, and didn't like that either. Mommy has a heart the size of the universe, is fierce like a lion, and will be a perfect mother. Looking down at the photo album, I asked Birth Mom, which pictures in the book made you think that we'll be good parents for your baby? She opened the book and said to Mommy,
I like all the pictures you made for me.
Birth mom pointed to a picture where Maria was reading to Christian.
I especially like this one.
She said, and she pointed to another picture that showed Christian standing at the school swing set with a small Mexican boy.
I like this one too.
I understand, I replied. We would be honored to adopt your baby, Birth mom. Birth mom's eyes teared up, and she said,
I want my baby to have a nice life with Mommy and Daddy.
God whispered to me, give Birth mom your cell phone number. And I did. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? I asked.
This is the hospital, and birth mom is having a baby. So come to the hospital because you will be the mommy and daddy.
Oh my God, I yelled. Birth mom is having the baby now! God whispered to me, lower your energy to calm level 1, Daddy. Mommy and Daddy walked into the room, and Birth mom was watching Star Trek. Spock was adopted, right? I asked Birth mom.
Spock is half Vulcan and half Earthling.
Birth mom said. God, I hope the baby doesn't have Spock's ears. And Birth mom smiled a little more. The doctor came into the room and said, the baby is here, and asked me to leave the room. And Mommy stayed, and I went to the delivery room where the other daddies slept. I laid down on the couch and said a prayer. Please help me to understand the baby, God. You will, God spoke softly to my heart. I drifted off to sleep, and I asked God, how will I know? How will I know? Because you're getting yourself. And say this to Angelica. I'm for you, and you're for me. And that's how God wants it to be. Next, Mommy kicked the couch.
I can't believe you fell asleep. The baby is here.
Boy or girl? I asked.
Girl.
She said. Spock ears?
No? Why would you ask that question?
Just curious, I said. Birth mom was holding you. Your hair was short, black, and styled back on the side of your head. Your eyes were a marble-shaped dark brown. You were crying, and your little tongue flickered like a newborn bird. She's hungry, I said to the nurse. The nurse looked at me and said,
How do you know that?
I cry when I'm hungry too, I said. I smiled at Birth mom and said, I read somewhere that babies born early are hungry, and the babies are old souls who will do great things in life. But the great things will never happen if a person is hungry. Please remember, you must eat, Angelica.
I know, Daddy. You tell me all the time.
Mommy and Birth mom saw a light shine from you and decided to name you Angelica. You were small and powerful, but needed to stay in the hospital, and a rocking chair was put in the room. Mommy and I visited you at different times of the day. I would drop Christian off at school and then go to the hospital, and Mommy would visit you after leaving the bank. Birth mom loved you so much, and I was 47 when you were born, and I'll be 65 when you go to college. That's real old, Angelica. So you must be good, okay?
I know, Daddy. You tell me all the time.
Birth mom was sitting in the rocking chair, crying, and slowly moving front to back. She held you in her arms, feeding you with a tiny bottle. I asked Birth mom gently, hard day? She looked down at you and said,
I love Angelica so much and want her with me, but I know I can't take care of her the way she needs. Angelica was born 3 days after we met. We are doing what the universe wants, and this is something we can't be afraid of.
I nodded yes, and Birth mom said,
She's so beautiful. Please watch over her.
I held Birth mom's hand and said, I promise to protect Angelica. Tears were rolling down your Birth mom's face, and she gave you to us. We sat in the rocking chair, and your little hand reached out and held my finger. And I said, I'm for you, and you're for me. And that's how God wants it to be. Birth mom was the most courageous person I have ever met, except for Mommy. And stay calm through all the issues you may encounter in life. Please be kind and take pictures of your life. and take the time to write the story of Angelica Heaney, because our story will pass down to future generations. Please remember that child skills are discovered during family activities, and it's the little moments that make life worth living. Please remember that we broke the chains of generational poverty, and life is a circle and repeats itself, and you will always have another chance to be a better version of yourself. Were you the most beautiful baby ever born in the history of baby girls being born? Yes, you were. Are you an incredible daughter? Yes, you are. The first time you held my finger, you were a premature baby at 4 pounds 9 ounces, and the strength of your hand confirmed that we would make it in a world that most might not understand. It was the squeeze of your hand on my finger which said to me,
Daddy, I'm for you, and you're for me. And that's how God wants it to be.
"Love, Daddy." Chapter 37. Parents Dying. When a parent is dying, it can be a time for forgiveness. Mom was in the hospital and dying, and I thought about the last time I'd seen my family and recalled a memory from 1996 when I was in my parents' living room. My dad was blackout drunk, and we were arguing about something stupid, and things had gotten nasty. But only this time, Christian was standing below me, pulling on my arm and trying to get me to leave the Christmas gathering. He was repeatedly saying,
Dad, let's go.
I remembered thinking that Christian was correct, because my dad was spouting from a blacked out area of his memory, and it sounded like he was in the 1970s. He was ranting about the Vietnam War, something that I'd done, and they were blended, and it made perfect sense to him, but I couldn't follow. I remember being in a time warp where the dysfunction was the same as when we were kids, but the difference was that we were all parents with children now exposed to alcoholism. Old habits emerged to resist his attacks while providing air cover for my siblings, and in the background I saw everyone moving around the dining room and kitchen in a state of anxiety. It was clear that the time had come, and I said aloud for all to hear, "I'm not doing this anymore. If we visit, there will be no drinking." "Then don't come back," Dad yelled back at me. "I won't," I said. I remember being angry at the drinking culture passed down from generation to generation and celebrated as a custom to be valued. I recalled another linked memory, and I was talking to Giovanni Colangelo in his backyard in Toronto. "I left Italy for a better life for my family." I returned to the present day in 2011. I hadn't seen my family in 17 years and was walking into an angry beehive that would require detachment. I would say as little as possible and detach. Composing myself, I recalled the times I wondered how guilty I would feel when one of my parents died. My cell phone rang, and it was Angelica. She was hurt because one of her classmates called her a monkey. There are worse things than being called a monkey, Jelly. Would it make you a chair if someone calls you a chair?
No, Daddy.
She said. Meet and greet, Jelly. The world is divided between givers and takers. Greet all people with kindness, and the givers will respond to you in kindness and turn your back on the nasties. I heard my words meet and greet and thanked Angelica for her guidance. The hospital room was dark, and the only light came from the monitors that were keeping Mom alive. Her face stuck out from the top of the sheet, and her long, slim arms were covered in spaces of white tape, hiding the needles connecting the intravenous fluids providing nourishment. Brother John and Dad respectfully stood on the side and rear of the bed and disclosed that Brother Joe's daughter was getting married in California. Everyone except Dad was going to California for the wedding. An ambulance would deliver Mom home from the hospital, and everyone would return early the following week from California. I thought to myself, the only reason I'm here is because of a wedding. Okay, I said. Later that day, my father and I were alone in Mom's room, and a doctor appeared to update us on her condition. Mom had 2 small heart attacks last week, which has made her weak and unconscious. Her bodily fluids are being replenished, and she will be discharged from the hospital soon with an oxygen tank and respirator hose to help her breathe, and she will die soon. My eyes flashed when the doctor said, Mom had 2 heart attacks. I thought she had a cold, Dad said. It could happen to anyone, the doctor said compassionately. Your mother has dementia, but you don't visit her and wouldn't know this, he said. It cut me like a knife, and I nodded. The next day, the ambulance delivered Mom home, and there were jackhammers wailing in the neighbor's driveway right below her window and bed. The respirator hose extended into Mom's nose and slid down her chin. The hospice worker demonstrated how to attach the respirator hose and turn the tank valve on, and Mom's nose twitched, and the air filled her lungs. The concrete company has a schedule and must complete the repair work. I asked them to stop, but they won't, Dad said. Mom's eyeballs started inside her closed eyelids and intensified with the pounding of the chippers. I thought Mom was 83 years old, and her life led to dying 10 feet away from concrete hammers removing the driveway next door. I had an impulse to intervene, but decided against it. Mom would most likely remain unconscious, and she would die peacefully in her sleep. After a while, Dad and I were in the kitchen, and he went into the pantry and came out with a gallon of wine. He couldn't open it and asked me to remove the cap, and after opening the bottle, I poured the wine down the sink. Hey, that's my wine! No drinking. We are keeping Mom alive until the kids return from California, I said. Dad went to Mass on Sunday morning, and I was alone with Mom. I slipped around the bed and opened a small space at the bottom of the window, and a slight breeze flowed to Mom's face, and she sighed. Gazing at Mom, I entered a past memory. It became 1964, and Mom was at the counter preparing Thanksgiving dinner. The Heaney kids were young, and we were laughing at the table. Mom turned around and held a grateful love in her eyes, displaying contentment with her children.
Everyone hungry?
She asked. We all giggled, and I slapped my brother Johnny's head and tried not to get caught.
No fighting on Thanksgiving. It's our special day,
Mom reminded us. And then we were bumping along in the station wagon toward the park swimming pool, and the car was stuffed with kids from the neighborhood. Mom's face turned, and I saw her red, rosy cheeks, and she said to us,
Take care of each other. I'm going to the grocery store and will return in 2 hours.
I smiled at the memories and looked at the wall filled with pictures, and a photo had Mom serving communion to older people in a nursing home. Mom had become a lay minister in my absence, and she was providing comfort in the last ritual of their lives. I tucked the cover under her chin, kissed her forehead, and said, I love you, Mom. It's time to go to heaven. I sat on the living room couch, and a few minutes later, I heard a noise coming from her bedroom and saw that she had climbed out of bed and moved to a chair.
Oh, Jimmy, you are here. I heard your voice. It's been so noisy. Is it the 4th of July?
She looked down and became embarrassed because she had peed.
I've made a mess, and I'm cold,
She said. I put a blanket on her and went and got a warm bucket of water, removed her gown, washed her, and redressed her in pajamas. As I placed her slippers on her feet, I looked up at her and said, I'm sorry I haven't seen you, but the drinking and my children.
I know, Jimmy. I'm sorry, too. About everything. And you did what was right.
How are you feeling? I asked.
I want to die. I'm so tired.
She said. When you arrive in heaven, you will enter the dining room, and Tommy and your mother, father, and sisters will be waiting for you. A Thanksgiving Day dinner is being prepared for you by angels. Tell everyone I said hello. She squeezed my hand and said,
Okay.
She closed her eyes and fell asleep in her chair, and I removed the sheets from the bed and went to the basement to wash them. Upon my return, my father sat at the kitchen table, and I wondered how long he had been home. All the fluids Mom received at the hospital, she peed, and the mattress is soaked, so let's put her in the rear bedroom," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, and Dad said quietly, "I don't believe the doctor. She didn't have 2 heart attacks." "Just one?" I asked. "I didn't know she had heart attacks. I was hoping she would get better, and I didn't want her to leave me. Can you understand that?" "People die around you because you don't see beyond yourself," I said. "I know you blame me for Tommy. You always have." "Yes, I do. Because you never had a moment that was a big moment where you changed. A poor man grocery shopping killed Tommy in an automobile on a Sunday afternoon, and that poor man had to live with the accident for the rest of his life. You blamed it on Tommy and the poor man driving the car, and you drove drunk whenever you drank because you didn't care. Your hypocrisy and selfishness are profound, and someday you will need someone to care about you, and it will be payback time. Get out of my house! You can't talk to me like this. I'm your father. And yet I do. You have no power over me. And when I leave, you will get drunk and pass out, and the resuscitator hose will fall out of Mom's nose, and then you will kill her too. Then I will get up, take the funeral mass over, and tell the whole church what a rotten guy you are. You can't do that. You won't do that. Sure I can. I'm you. I'll do whatever I want to do. I'll destroy Mom's funeral, smack my brothers, and the cops will come. And I'll get in the car, drive away, and forget about you by the time I get to the corner. You know I'll do it. Or you cannot drink. Watch over her and help her stay alive until the kids get home. And you will feel better if you do." He nodded okay, and we spent the next 2 days not speaking. Everyone returned from California, and Mom died soon after. At the funeral, I felt scorn, the guilt and the emptiness of the moment, and I vacated the funeral mass and created a lasting memory. I was standing at the bottom of black polished steps, which led to 2 large bronze doors. I entered a large room with a fireplace and a glowing fire, and on a brown desk was a pad of paper and a pen. In the background, I heard the priest's sermon telling the congregation what a wonderful woman my mother was. I recalled Tommy's funeral, and I was standing in the pew and saw how sad my mom, dad, and siblings were that Tommy had died. I reached out and found Steve and Mary Kay's hands and held them gently. And they found my brother Joe and Johnny's hands, who in turn held my mom and dad's hands. I reflected a moment and wrote a letter to Mom, which read, "Dear Mom, thank you for being you and helping me understand our life together. I'm grateful that we spoke before you died. God knows how much you tried, and I love you for all you did and gave to us. And you're on top of the world, Ma, in heaven. Love, Jimmy." Chapter 38. Hypocrisy. 7 years later, my brother Steve was calling again. "Dad got drunk, fell, and was incapacitated on the kitchen floor for 2 days, and may not live. He wants to see you." "Perfect," I said. "Just when the day can't get any better, I get more good news." A dark hue came from inside Dad's hospital room. Dad was fragile and covered to the neck in a white hospital sheet, and his feet were sticking out from the bottom for air. A Catholic mass came from a small speaker near a couch in the rear of the room, and a large crucifix of Jesus hung on the wall, reminding me to stay civil. I turned the volume down and sat at the end of the couch, so if he woke up, he would see me, and after a short time, his eyes opened. "You only come around when people are dying," Dad said. I got up, walked to the bed, and looked at the blank television screen. "You asked to see me?" "I thought I was going to die," Dad said. "I couldn't get up. At first, I listened, hoping someone would come to the house, and then I prayed that someone would help me, and then I thought about dying, and then I thought about you. You must help me like you helped your mom. I have a will, and all my kids are beneficiaries, including you." Screw me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No way, not me, I thought to myself. Look, I know we've had our differences, he said, but a couple of years ago, a member at the church asked Mom to witness the signing of a new will, and the son's mother had dementia just like your mother. Everyone in the family got screwed. Their brothers are my will's executors. They want me to make a new will, and I don't want to. So, it was a dementia party? I asked. That's not funny, Dad said. And there was money missing in my account. So I put your sister on the bank account so she could make sure nothing was missing. And your brother had a fling with a member of his church. It sounds like all that church going on Sundays hasn't helped anyone, I said. And I wonder what Coach Jesus on the wall would say about the current situation. I was going to sell the house anyway. If you're around, everything will be fine. Dress nice. I'll see you at your funeral, I said, and walked out of the hospital room. On the drive home, I thought about it and laughed. Dad laid on the floor for 2 days and thought he was going to die and has an illuminating insight. His 2 sons, the co-executors, are precisely like him and won't take care of him. Then he thinks of lucky me and he's buying me off by saying I'm in the will. Nope. I'd been betrayed so many times. Walking in the whole mess would be easier. And Dad didn't deserve empathy. He tried to destroy me countless times, and I would be free to settle all debts. He who laughs last laughs the loudest, and revenge is provided through divine providence. I win again. The phone rang, and it was Christian calling from California. How's your dad? I told him the scenario, and he ended by saying, You're a great role model, Dad. Love you. Goodbye. I paused and thought, I don't want to be a great role model. I want to be a vengeful, sick man like good old Dad. And there wasn't a camera in Dad's hospital room, so maybe a suffocating pillow could be a quick and final solution for all parties concerned. And somewhere inside, I felt I would have preferred to sign autographs and win awards. On the other side, I thought about my younger brother and sister getting screwed by the co-executors and realized I couldn't protect them without being available for Dad's end days. And he looked strong, which would give me time to guide the process to a peaceful end. I thought of a past memory, and I was 14, watching television in the kitchen on Blackstone Avenue. It was Thursday night, April 4th, 1968, and Robert F. Kennedy was stating, I have unfortunate news for you, fellow citizens and people who love peace worldwide. Tonight, Dr. Martin Luther King was shot and killed in Memphis, Tennessee. Martin Luther King dedicated his life to love and justice between fellow human beings, and he died in the cause of that effort. My mom looked out from the living room drapes and asked,
Do you think we're safe, Dad?
My dad was thoughtful, and his head rested below his chin as he saw his children watching the tiny television. It's wrong what they did to Martin Luther King. It's just so wrong, he added. I slipped out the front door as the night air carried a fire truck siren and saw African-American neighbors talking to each other on the corner. Coughing nervously, I announced that I was present as I retreated into the early evening shadows and braced against the porch's brown asphalt siding. Later that night, on the 10 o'clock news, there were reports of riots around the country, including Chicago, and the Heaneys were living right square in the middle of the chaos. The next day, just before lunch, poor Miss Hope announced that the Friday afternoon classes were canceled because it was rioting on 87th Street, 4 blocks away from the school. At lunch on Saturday, my dad said the riot continued through Friday and decided to be proactive. Joe and Jimmy, bring the lawnmower to the front of the house.
In the front yard? Now?
I asked. Yes, he said. My dad's arm pulled 3 times, and the lawnmower's engine echoed through the quiet air. A few neighbors came out of their houses, and my dad waved them over to us. They looked unsure of what would come next, and I positioned myself on the porch and was ready for what might come next. My family and I are angry over Martin Luther King Jr. There is not making any sense of it, and I thought about what I could do or say, and we can't change this. But we stand together with you on the murder of MLK. We're barbecuing later today because Martin Luther King is resting peacefully in heaven with God, and we hope you will join us for a hot dog and a beer this evening." Opening my eyes, I returned to the present and thought about Christian, and decided that Dad was requesting that I be available for his transition and would be a good role model. The next day, Dad was surprised to see me. "I want a copy of the will," I said. "My leg is feeling better. Thanks for asking." "How's your leg feel?" I asked. "It's getting better," Dad said. "Lucky you," I said. "Your sister will give you a copy of the will," Dad said. Months later, we placed Dad in a senior's home. We brought his furniture from his house, and the apartment was comfortable and familiar to him. He had his favorite chair, bookcase, and television, and on the surrounding shelves were family pictures of my mom, siblings, and grandkids. I was not in any of the photos. "You're not in any of the pictures. Were you working? I've thought we could take a family picture with all of us together. How's that sound?" I asked. "Sounds nice," he said. Dad was content, and we created a child's routine for him. I visited him during the week, and my younger brother and sister would visit and bring pizza on Friday night. Our visits were always the same. We would sit quietly for a moment, and I would bring up one of the pictures on the television stand, and he nodded to a picture that I wasn't in. "You're not in that picture either. You must have been working." Then his memory would shift, and he'd tell me a story about growing up in his neighborhood as a kid. We talked about a theater at 63rd and Halsted, Western matinees, and his eyes would light up talking about the Westerns. Who knew? I searched Google and typed in movie matinees in the 1930s on Halsted in Chicago, and up popped a picture of the Kim Theater at 6219 South Halsted Avenue. I showed him the picture on my phone and asked, "Is this the movie theater?" "That's it. That's it. How'd you do that?" he asked. "Google. What will we do without Google?" I said. "I don't know. What's Google?" he asked. "A search engine," I said. "I think I've heard of that," he said. He pointed at the picture on my phone. "My friends and I would ride our bikes to the theater and hide them in a gangway at the building next door. We rode our bikes everywhere, and one time someone stole my bike, and your grandfather beat me for that." "I remember the day you taught me to ride a bike, Dad." "I taught you to ride a bike? I don't remember." It was early afternoon on July 4th, 1962, and the firecrackers were going off in the alley, and the smell of smoke was in the air. "I remember how that smelled," Dad said. "I couldn't learn to balance the bike because the seat was too high, and my feet couldn't reach the bottom of the pedals, and I couldn't turn the wheels. You saw my problem, went into the basement, came back with a wrench, adjusted, and lowered the seat. 'Okay, let's try now,' you said. 'Practice, because life is like riding a bike. Once you learn how, you won't forget. I'll teach you, and today, you will learn how to ride a bike forever.' I kept falling off the bike, and you kept putting me back on the bike, and I rode right into the rose bushes and scratched my arms up pretty good. I was bleeding and feeling sorry for myself, and decided that I would walk everywhere. You got mad and grabbed me by the shirt, and we went down to the basement to clean up the blood and said, 'Jimmy, don't you ever quit in life. Don't let anything or anyone break you, especially me. Life is hard.' You pointed to your brain and said, 'It's a thinking man's game, so think. You're doing something you can change when riding the bike.'" "What happened?" Dad asked. "I kept my balance and rode the bike down the street and back to you." "I believed you could do it. It would be nice if I could remember," he said sadly. Time went by, and Dad felt safe in his new apartment. His house was empty, and my brothers were still trying to get him to change his will before he died. Dad didn't want issues with the estate, so he sold his house and gave me a list of his financial assets. "We never had enough money. I feel different with money in the bank. Dad said. The weekly visits were cordial, and we would talk about his life, followed by my life and what Maria and the kids were doing. I would tell him a story, and he would always end by saying the same thing. That's a good one, Jimmy. Yes, Dad. I just thought about what you would do, and then I would do it. It's a thinking man's game. Remember the summer you were grounded for forging your grades? You drove me crazy because you wouldn't study, so I placed you on the mice extermination mission. Do you remember why I did that? Yes, it was 1966. And you said, Jimmy, we came from a long line of mice hunters. In the old country, the rich Irish lived in brick houses, and the poor Irish lived in wood houses. The wood houses had mice entering the frame house because the weather would eat away at the wood nearest the ground. We believed that if a person could outsmart a mouse, you would be successful in life. The key to mice hunting is to catch the leader mouse, because the leader trains all the other mice. Catch the leader, and the other mice are caught too. You, Jimmy, can be the greatest mouse hunter of all time. And because you're in jail forever, I commission you to catch the mice in the basement. What did you call your invention? A Howard tape trap, I said. Tell the story again, son. Mr. Howard's rowboat had hit a rock and had a small leak and was leaking water, and he had an idea about fixing the boat with glue and tape. I'd take Tommy on a walk in the stroller, and Mr. Howard and I strategized on how to test the glue, tape, and destroy mice simultaneously. I took Mom's cookie pan, lined the bottom with Mr. Howard's glue, and then placed his tape on top of the glue. Put a couple of scoops of peanut butter on the tape, and then put it on the floor. 4 mice got stuck on the tape eating the peanut butter. I showed you the pan and asked if I could go to little Frankie's birthday party. And you said no. And you went anyway and caused a ruckus at that motel. Yes, the mission had a time frame, and Mr. Howard and I called our mission Get Santa. You knew about that? I asked. It was a small neighborhood. I was proud of you, but you drove me crazy. How are Maria and the kids? Good, Dad. They're good. One day, Dad was reserved, and while staring out the window, said, I've been meaning to say about the paper route. I wish I would not have. He sighed, became quiet, and couldn't finish what he wanted to say. There was never enough money and too many kids, I added quickly. I guess so, he said. The more we talked about his life, the closer Dad came to death and was often depressed. I would try to cheer him up, but he wasn't himself. What's wrong, Dad? It turns out the priest who was going to preside at my funeral mass has been defrocked and moved to Montana to fly fish. What? Screw me, I said. Exactly. Screw me too, Dad said. The priest is no longer available to say nice things about me at the funeral. Who will talk on my behalf? What do you mean? I asked. All the funerals I go to, the priests say nice things for the dead. And I know some of the dead guys were not so lovely. Wow, the priest moved to fly fish. That's a selfish thing to do. I've never heard of a fly fish. Is that like trout or a dolphin? I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. Dad sighed. What am I going to do? Do you think I'll make the first team? Look, we'll have another priest for the mass, I said, and we'll give him a few nice things to say about you. You won't know anyway, because you'll be dead. He smirked and said, Everything's always funny to you, and that was a problem. Everything is not funny. Okay? Okay, I said. I lived my life believing in God, Dad said, and I went to Mass every Sunday. But the scandals with the priests and boys, and now I'm dying. Was it all a waste of time? Is God real? I thought I was going to church because the priests knew something I didn't know. And sometimes on Sundays, I was hoping to hear the one thing that would help me change. I know I wasn't perfect, but I would try to be better. And sometimes I was a better person. Am I wrong to feel this way? Do you think I'll get into heaven? And I gave an envelope every week to the collection. I thought for a few seconds and said, "The bright side is you gave small donations, right? Everything was always a joke to you. It was a problem." Okay, listen. Everyone except for the premeditated murderers, serial killers, and pedophiles gets into heaven. And you're not on that list. You'll make the first team because you never hurt anyone intentionally. And life is quick, and everyone does the best they can. "You think so?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "There are different levels of hypocrisy, and some priests were frauds and pretended to be Jesus. If a priest knowingly protected a pedophile priest who assaulted children, the priest is complicit in the atrocity against the child. The priests keep each other's secrets, the children suffer, and lives are changed forever. I hope God is merciful because that is profound selfishness. The key to becoming a better person is directly related to letting go of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is like a junk-filled closet. The more hypocrisy removed from the closet, the more space there is for better behavior, kindness, and empathy for others. However, if people accept their hypocrisy, humanity can't evolve, and generational disease and trauma remain the same. Dad's door was locked on February 23rd, 2020, and he always left it open so that I could walk in. I knew something was wrong and looked down the hall and saw the cleaning lady's cart. "Come with me, please. My dad's room is locked. I need you to open it." We saw Dad lying in bed, draping his arm over the bed. "Tell the front desk to send an ambulance." "Dad? It's Jimmy. Can you hear me?" His eyes shifted towards my voice, and I knelt and prayed. "Dear God, Dad and I have freely forgiven each other. As you know, Dad played his role perfectly, and I would not have become who I am if Dad wasn't who he was. Angelica's adoption resulted from his stance against racism, and Dad gave me the gift of perseverance and taught me to ride a bike and be more intelligent than a mouse. Please forgive him, God, for he knows not what he did. Sure, there were problems. Dad drank too much, and the hot dogs were burnt when he barbecued. But he didn't quit drinking or barbecuing because Dad wasn't a quitter. There were too many kids and not enough money, and I respectfully request his admittance to heaven. Let's not screw him in the last inning. See you on the other side, Dad. Amen. Much appreciated. Jimmy." From behind me, I heard the paramedics coming through the door, and I watched as they put him on the cart and whisked him off to the hospital. 2 days later, all his kids stood together at the foot of the bed, facing him, and we decided to remove life support and let him pass on to the other side. Dad opened his eyes and saw his children together one last time, and his eyes glistened for a second, and then died. We had a new priest say the funeral mass, and in the eulogy, the priest said Dad was a great father and husband. And Dad was right. Some nonsense went on with the disbursement of his will. It turned out Dad had some stocks that the executors didn't think anyone knew about and tried to steal. But after a discussion, better discretion was applied, and Dad's last will was peacefully completed. In the end, Miss Hope promised me that if I helped people out in little ways, then better things would happen for everyone. And she was right. I was happy that Dad and I had forgiven each other and had completed the circle of life. Chapter 39. Dear Someone. My parents were like a garden mixed with flowers and weeds. I kept the flowers and the best parts of them and planted them in my children's hearts, knowing they would reproduce the flowers and their best traits in my grandchildren. I was graced to be able to reroute generational trauma, addiction, poverty, and hypocrisy. and I'm in awe of God's plan to move humanity forward 1 inch at a time. The circle of life can't fully happen without mercy and forgiveness. So please try to forgive and be merciful. I wish you well on your journey and pray that a book for someone finds you in good spirits. Hope is the light that shines through all. Your friend, Jimmy Heaney. Epilogue. Ring, ring, ring,
Yes, I see.
the director said.
And I will forward the message to poor Miss Hope.
The High Command's message read, Mission accomplished. The end. This has been A Book for Someone, written by Jim Heaney, narrated by Ben Houck and Rachel Sloan. To contact the author, visit www.divinechild.us. The end.